So the other day I was catching up on LEGO Ninjago lore when I suddenly started thinking about Zavok. As one does. Zavok was always that character, or rather in that group of characters, that I never really bothered caring about. I mean, why would I? Industry plant villains from an at best decent game that ultimately changed nothing about Sonic's world as a whole. There's just not much for me to care about. But that being said, my opinions on Lost World have softened over the years. While at first I wanted nothing to do with it, over time I've come to enjoy the small aspects of this game that are worth enjoying. The movement, while taking some time to get used to, can be fun. And in the end, while I would have preferred to step in the direction of games like Unleash Your Generations, Lost World is, as a whole, generally inoffensive. The Zetti are an interesting concept on paper, strange creatures on a weird floating continent that no one seems to have known of previously. These creatures also possess a unique ability to control technology. By manipulating magnetic fields, they can cause nearly any machine to do their bidding. In theory, it could be great, but it could also be Bowser. Looking at the Zetti as characters outside of their debut game though, what have they been able to do? Well, I mean, not much. They raced one time, and then they raced again. Zavok rode a bee one time, that was funny. Despite having an entire game to build them up as some evil threat that the main cast needs to be wary of, the Deadly Six just aren't utilized to their full potential. They might seem one note, and that's kinda cause they are, by design, but there's still a lot that could have been done with them. Flesh them out, give them a reason to exist, you know? Or heck, at least make them a genuine threat. Wait, IDW is canon now, isn't it?
The lore, guys, the lore! The lore!
Yeah, during the climax of the infamous Metal Virus saga, the Deadly Six end up becoming this crazy ultimate threat for our heroes to face off against. It's during this storyline that I saw the potential these characters have. It's not much potential, but hey, it's something. Man, what's the deal with so many Sonic characters having nothing but unused potential? Silver and the Potential Gang. To give you a quick rundown, Zavok and the Goon Squad are brought in to control the Zombots by Dr. Starline because he doesn't think Eggman knows what he's doing. It's a long story, but basically Eggman didn't actually guarantee a way to control the Zombots, so now every side of the war is susceptible to the virus. Despite the whole reason that Starline is working for Eggman is because of his evil and insane nature, Starline severely underestimated how far Robotnik is willing to go for a simple one-up on Sonic. This arrogance on Starline's behalf proves to be detrimental in the long run, as the moment the Zetti and Ivo make eye contact, it's on sight. You'd think with how interested in Eggman's outing Starline is, he'd be able to pay attention to know basic lore. I know Pontac is like the Shakespeare of our time, but it shouldn't be that hard to understand that these two characters do not like each other. Eggman is obviously outgunned since the Zetti have no issue controlling his tech, so their best bet is to flee. And it's here we need to pay attention to something Zavok lays out for us. According to Zavok, controlling the Zombots is already a pretty daunting task. The Zombots are infected organic organisms that are consumed by hundreds of thousands of microscopic nanobots, which in turn transform the organism on a molecular level from living matter into soulless metallic mutants. The nanobots completely take over the mind of whatever they're infecting. Any possible brain activity is completely replaced by the will of the tiny machines. This is where the Zetti come in. Mustard! Normally the Zetti could only dream of controlling living creatures. It's why they turn Tails into a robot. What, you forgot about that scene? It's okay, the writers did too.
That's horrible!
So now when presented with an army of technically living creatures, they'd be foolish not to jump at the opportunity. But Zavok points out a caveat here. While it's true they can control the Zombots, there's a limit. In Lost World, it'd be impossible to notice with the small enemy count per level, but the Zetti actually have a limited amount to what they can control. Zavok states that at most, each Zetti can control a few dozen Zombots. That's why in the comics, they take the Chaos Emeralds to boost their power. Apparently, a single emerald is enough to juice up a single Zetti from a few dozen Zombots to thousands. Obviously, we aren't counting Chaos Emerald usage in this, but it's good to know. So now that we know how Zavok's powers work and what his limits are, where does the Goblin Kid come in? Sage is one of the most recent additions to the Sonic cast, and honestly, I'm a big fan. I like the dynamic she's able to engage in with the other characters. She fits right in. A daughter to Eggman, a sister to Metal, and a playful adversary to Sonic. It's a lot of fun. But obviously, the whole reason I had the idea for this video is because she's not a real girl. She wasn't even meant to turn into a girl in the first place. Sage's story starts at the beginning of Sonic Frontiers. Eggman's most recent plan found him hoping to harness the power of the Ancients' technology. For this, he needed a way to be able to hack into the complicated systems on the Starfall Islands, so he got to work creating his most advanced AI yet. Eggman's no stranger to extremely advanced AI helping him out. Say what you want about Dumb and Dumber, but they're still incredibly impressive no matter how stupid they may seem. Sage was different though. Sage was created solely to progress Eggman's plan. She'd be attached to the cyberspace portal on the islands, begin running her code, and before you know it, bam, Eggman would be all powerful. But That's not what happened. As soon as Sage was plugged into cyberspace, her code was vastly changed. Aspects of her were seemingly rewritten. Qualities she didn't know she had were made more lifelike. She somehow gained humanity despite being far from human. And on top of all of this, the Ancient's tech increased her power and abilities immensely, allowing her to not only control some of the technology on the islands, but also allowing her to form her own physical body, something she absolutely shouldn't have been able to do. At first, Eggman doesn't think much of it. He hardly notices the alterations from the Ancient's tech. It's a computer program after all, nothing he hasn't used before.
I'm stupider than he is!
But over time, he begins picking up on all the little things. He notices her personality, her intelligence, her abilities, and all of this slowly shifts Eggman's perspective. By the end of the game, he sees himself as not just an inventor, but also a father. Eggman is proud of what Sage has turned into, so much so that he treats her like a real kid. It's a really nice part of Sonic Frontier's story that I don't hear many people talking about. Some of it's only mentioned in egg memos and stuff like that, but I don't know, I still really like what they built up. Kinda makes you feel bad when you remember that Metal and the Shape Twins exist, but oh well. Wonder what would have happened if they were plugged into cyberspace. So now that I've explained Sage and what she is, what can she do? Well, it's not too far off from what the Zetti are capable of, actually. Despite her powers seeming limited in Sonic Frontiers, make no mistake, she could have absolutely controlled the Titans if she wanted to. At first she says she can only influence their rage or whatever, but that's only because the end was still present. By the finale of the game, it's made very clear that Sage has no problem taking control of robots like Supreme once the end has fled into space. To lay out the basics of what that means, it takes a literal deity to stop this child from doing whatever she wants. And even then, said child can still influence the robot she's being kept from controlling. That's really funny, and something tells me Eggman still hasn't grasped the weight of what he's really created. So we've got our two competitors, a giant ogre and a little goblin child. The question is, who would win? Well, one's a machine and the other controls machines, so the answer's obviously Zavok. Sage wins, here's why. Let's say these two are put in a big arena with every robot ever created at their disposal. Both can do whatever they want to win, and the victor is whoever's left standing. Zavok would obviously think this is a cakewalk. Not only is he fighting a kid, but a robot kid that Eggman created. This is nothing to him. So naturally, without much thought, Zavok stretches out his hands and sends out his magnetic waves to assume control.
Why?
No, Zavok cannot control Sage. I'm sure some of you already knew that, but let me explain why for those who haven't quite connected the dots. As stated previously, Zavok's powers are fairly simple. He sends out innate magnetic waves. Why did I think I would be able to say that? Which take over the mechanical processes of whatever he's looking to control. However, when the thing you're trying to control isn't a robot, there's gonna be a bit of a snag in things. Sage is one of the most unique creations Eggman has ever made. For the reasons I stated previously, yes, but also for one simple fact that gives her an easy edge over Zavok. She's not a robot, she's an AI. Sage may not be real, she may be a robotic creation much like Orbot and Metal Sonic, but unlike them, she's not housed in a mechanical shell. Where Metal requires a robotic frame to function, Sage does not. While being able to interact with the physical world, Sage is basically a ghost. Her AI programming is projecting her body, but there's no physical mechanics involved. Another benefit of her integration into cyberspace. In other words, where a regular robot would easily fail, Sage excels. So now, as Zavok awkwardly stares in confusion at the gremlin across from him, the question shifts from, could Zavok control Sage, to who would win in a fight between Zavok and Sage. Physically, you'd think Zavok would have the edge. Anyone who says this isn't what peak male performance looks like doesn't know what they're talking about. One punch from this meatbag would be enough to shatter even the toughest of warriors. How does Sage hope to deal with such a formidable adversary? Yeah, when your second resort is to punching your foes into submission, it's gonna be pretty difficult to win when your opponent is intangible. As stated previously, Sage is like a ghost. Her body is a projection, allowing her to float, teleport, and phase through walls. Teleportation and floating already gave her an easy advantage, but being impossible to touch leaves Zavok with one last option. Both characters have a similar ability of controlling technology with a wave of a finger. So in the end, it'll come down to whoever's will is stronger. If we remember back to Zavok's abilities, Brother has the capability to control a few dozen bots at a time. For the sake of numbers, let's set that at 36. An impressive feat, no doubt. But how does it measure up to the child? This feels more degrading the more this goes on, I'm sorry, Zavok. Well, it's a little harder to judge with Sage since she's still a relatively new cast member and has only had a few appearances, but I think it'd be safe to assume that most of her abilities in this regard would be the same as in Sonic Frontiers. From my understanding and how I explained her existence earlier, Sage's physical form and all her crazy abilities are a combined miracle of Eggman's genius and the ancient cyberspace tech. However, considering her physical body still exists off the Starfall Islands, I'm going to assume that means she retains all those attributes and abilities when when not on the islands, like she's been permanently mutated. Think of it like Spider-Man, bro doesn't need a constant stream of spider venom to use his powers. Obviously, there's some of my own assumptions. I'm piecing together a lot of vague pieces from games and outside material because Sonic games can somehow never explain things clearly enough. That being said though, it's unclear if she has a limit like the Zetti. As said before, she had a cap during the story of Sonic Frontiers, but that was solely because of the end, a being capable of wiping out planets was blocking her control. And even then, Sage was somehow still able to influence the Titans the end was corrupting. She couldn't control them, but she was able to direct their anger at Sonic. Side note, but I really like how it's canonical that Sage is just rage baiting Sonic for the entirety of Frontiers. Like, go look at the Egg memos, Sage was trolling that whole time and then going to tell Eggman about it. I have never respected a grind so legendary. So if we take Sage's feats against the End and apply them in a fight against the likes of a Zetti, I'ma be so real, I don't think Zavok has a ghost of a chance. If a literal deity is struggling to hold her back, I don't think overriding some magnetic waves is going to present her with much of a struggle. So, to recap, Zavok can't outsmart her, he can't outrun her, and he can't even hope to lay a scratch on her. So, yeah, I don't really have a way to end that sentence. Bro went from being a towering threat to a total pushover in a matter of minutes. I'd like to think that Sage wouldn't even need to lift a finger to win this fight. Like, Zavok absolutely wouldn't be willing to back down, and I'm sure he could easily wipe out whatever Eggman mech gets thrown at him, at least within reason. He might be a meme, but power-wise, he's no pushover. However, that could be his downfall. What do y'all know about Batman? I promise this is relevant. Batman is partially famous for being on or working with the Justice League, and he's even more famous for being prepared. In the past, there have been stories of Batman creating contingency plans for if any of the League members were to go bad one day. If someone were to overstep, he'd have a plan to put them down. Superman obviously has kryptonite, the Flash gets a bomb strapped to his wrist that blows up if his speed fluctuates, Green Lantern has his will shattered by thinking he failed, you get it. Well, I'm bringing this up because Wonder Woman's is pretty interesting to me. See, an Amazon spirit is famously unbreakable. They will not stop fighting when a battle is ongoing. So the method to break her is to simply supply her with an endless horde of enemies to mow down. It might take time and resources, but eventually her body will quit on her and she'll die of overexertion. See where I'm going with this? Zavok is strong, but like all organics, he'll eventually reach his limit. So all Sage has to do is throw mech after mech at him until his body gives out. Almost seems cruel when I say it like that, but that's really about as simple as it gets. I don't know, maybe I'm giving Zavok too much credit, but with how big he talks, I'd like to assume that he wouldn't back down in a fight to the death. Obviously, this is just how I think everything would play out. Don't take it as some official power scaling or anything.
Throwing his balls in your face.
But I'm hoping I looked over everything thoroughly enough to make a solid theory. But when it all comes down to it, one of these characters helped take down Thanos himself, while the other kneels to a conch shell. I think I know who I'm rooting for. I haven't done a theory video like this in a good while. I love thinking about dumb stuff like this. Let me know if y'all have any funny headcanons or theories. I'd love to dive into more goofy possibilities. Also, while I'm at it, sorry I've been gone for a while. Thought about making an update video, but I just didn't think it's stuff I should be worrying y'all with.
What do you want me to do, Father?
I'm all good, don't worry. Just can't promise content at specific points anymore. It's just a lot to put on my plate right now, so I guess whenever a video's out, that's when it's out.
Always naysaying.
Thanks for sticking with me, though. I appreciate it. Man, if you think about it, the entire story of Lost World could have been completely different if Sage had been around. The Zetti would have been a non-issue, Eggman could have got his green or whatever. Still would have turned Tails into a robot though, screw that guy.
That's horrible.
$2 in the morning. Who is that? Yo, it's Gleep. What up, man?